Right, I will call the regular Ridgway Town Council meeting of March 2023 to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilors Grambly,
Here.
Kroger,
Here.
Lakin, here, Schuyler,
Here.
Thomas is not present. Mayor Pro Tem Meyer,
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Thank you. That brings us to additions and or deletions to the agenda. Do we have any either?
Yes, sir. One, if we could add a request for authorization of Mayor Clark to sign a letter of support for Ridgway County's congressionally directed spending request. Please.
Okay, so should we put that number 13 and bump the other two down? 13 and 14 down.
That works fine.
Anything else?
I need to add to the consent agenda the renewal of the restaurant liquor license for True Grit Cafe.
All right. Very aware of that. And I assume that's it. No additions or deletions. That brings us to adoption of the consent calendar. Is there anything on there anybody wants to pull off, or is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Beth. Because we have one counselor remote, we have to do roll call vote. So.
Council members Grambly,
Aye.
Kroger,
Hi.
Lakin, Schuyler,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, thank you. That brings us to public comments. Establish time on the agenda for the public to address council for any item that's not otherwise on the agenda.
Recording in progress.
Turn off the audio, Jerry.
Hi,
Welcome.
Mayor Clark, council members, thanks for hearing me. I'm Clark Gilbert. I'm the president of the Ridgway Pickleball Club. And sorry I missed the Parks and Rec meeting yesterday, or I may have had some of my questions answered. But I just wanted to say that we've attained 501c3 status. So that's good. We've also raised $14,000 so far in grants or in promises for funding. And I noticed in the town budget that we got $40,000 for the new master plan, and also in the 10-year plan, there's $450,000 for the pickleball club, pickleball courts. And I just had a few questions to go on beyond that. Is you know, I wanted to get some idea on the timing for the master plan, because a lot of our funding is going to tie to that timing and where the land's going to actually be before, as you know, you'll have to start some of the engineering. The timing on the engineering procurement construction for those pickleball courts, and see where we can help on that. And you know, how can we help the town in that endeavor? And maybe Preston, maybe we can get a meeting with you as well to see how we can coordinate with the town, because as you know, you guys got the land. We're going to have at least some of the money. See how we can best engage, and what the rules of the engagement might be. And I think that's about it.
Okay. So I think your best bet is to work with staff to get those questions answered, unless you have any.
The master planning process for the athletic park, staff's hoping to get an RFP drafted and issued sometime probably early summer. That's the first step in the process. There's no funding in the 2023 budget for engineering and construction document for pickleball courts. That'll be subsequent budget cycles for consideration by town council, but happy to set a time to visit and talk through that further.
Okay, good. Maybe that's where some of our early money can best go. If you don't have any money, we can help on the engineering funding right straight up front. You know, but yeah, let's talk about it and see where we can get together.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to be really clear that the $450,000 in a 10-year cycle that is a project that has come up and there's been interest shown in it, and it doesn't constitute a promise by council that there will be money appropriated. So just so we're clear, there's not any like, oh, well, where is it in 2024? That those are those things that come up every year in a cycle where we weigh the different capital plans and decide which
Sure.
one makes it into the budget the next year.
Yeah, I kind of know a 10-year budget's kind of a.
Yeah, just it's,
It's a little pie in the sky.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
It's good to have it there,
Yeah,
but things change and
you know, and that's the type of thing where if knowing you guys have seed money, it could get moved to a 5-year next year if there's clearly that momentum and, you know, that those type of things.
certainly that's our hope is get that seed money, get these angel or donors in there that we can help to accelerate that schedule a bit.
Awesome.
Questions?
great.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Hello.
Hi, my name is Kyle Ronimus, and I'm just here to say how much myself and so many people around town appreciate you guys making this town so dog friendly. For the local residents and visitors as well. Pretty much every morning, a group of us gather down by the skate park. And it's just a great gathering of locals and some within the city, some within the county. And for example, last Mondays and Fridays are usually the biggest. There were 20 dogs down there, probably about 30 people down there, and it's just a great community event. And I just want to say everybody's super diligent about picking up their dogs due and telling anybody if their dog's doing it, they don't happen to see it or whatever. So, and then picking up random people, a lot of times take a couple extra bags down to the park. And if there's, you know, like now with the snow melting, yesterday I went down through there and I probably picked up about 30 poos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I also go down every afternoon, late afternoon with my dog, take her a quick walk. So I always take a couple bags and pick up anything I see besides my own. But we really appreciate you keeping all the boxes full with bags. Because most people, I think, most dog owners will pick up after their dog. You know, there's always a couple scoundrels that won't, but in general, if there's bags around, people will pick up, and there's always bags, so we appreciate that. And my wife Amber and I are just we're gonna pass on our names to get on board with the athletic park sponsor. I'm not sure who that is, but I saw what great parks program you guys have. I'll sponsor, and we'll just be under the athletic park group, and pretty much be willing to do anything we need over there, and just want to say thanks.
Thanks, Kyle. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm gonna make a little donation to help with the bags for a couple months, hopefully. And then my wife and my phone numbers and contacts are here.
Great. Thank you.
You.
That's really awesome. I can't tell you how above and beyond the Call of Duty that is for you.
Well, everybody down there appreciates it so much. And visitors, I gotta tell you, often there's people, visitors that are coming and kind of checking out town. And they come down and they'll see that and it's like, they're sold.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Anyone else? Public comments? All right, that takes us to our.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Could I jump in and make a little
Yeah, Luke, go ahead.
comment? Thank you. First of all, I apologize. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand on here and I can never remember how to do it. So I figured I'd just jump in.
Thanks for speaking up. That's good.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. My name is Luke Stock. Sorry, let me start my video here. My name is Luke Stock, and I am a member of what's called AmeriCorps, and it's AmeriCorps Vista, which stands for Volunteers in Service to America. So right now I am doing a 1-year program where I am stationed at Tri-County Health Network. Now with Tri-County Health Network, we have offices and we help communities in San Miguel County, Uriah County, Montrose County, and often reaching well beyond that. Now, just a look briefly with AmeriCorps Vista, me and several other members in this kind of little area of Colorado serve with this 1-year term at different nonprofits. And like I mentioned, I am with the Tri-County Health Network, which focuses on promoting, addressing and promoting community health equity needs. Now we are technically volunteers and are issued a living stipend, which we live off of for that year. And I was in contact with the Ridgway town clerk, just asking that we could make this little announcement because next week is a recognition week for these AmeriCorps volunteers all over the country, including right here in Southwest Colorado. So we are just asking the local community for your support and recognition of all of these AmeriCorps members that are working in their community, and especially here in Southwest Colorado. We did work on issuing an official proclamation, and we are doing that in some other towns in our area, but it ended up not quite working out here. So instead, we are just taking this brief moment to issue this little announcement asking for community support and recognition. With next week being AmeriCorps Week, as it's known, there will be activities, promotions on social media, etc. So that will be part of this kind of promotion of AmeriCorps, getting the name out there, showing what all these people are doing. And yeah, so we just wanted to get that out there. Thank you so much for your recognition and this brief moment of your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Really appreciate it. I know in the past, I, as mayor, have gotten emails from probably the parent organization of the AmeriCorps program, asking us to recognize volunteers, and I've been lax in doing that for the last few years. So thanks for the reminder. I don't know. I can't remember. Were you asking that we do a resolution, or just wanted to let us know about the fact that you're doing it?
Yep, no, sorry, no official resolution or anything that ended up not working out. Just wanted to get this little announcement out there. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for doing what you do. Anybody else have any comments for Luke or about AmeriCorps? I know we have a Teach for America person in the back of the room. So that's thumbs up to you, Liz.
Report for
Report. Sorry, sorry.
Things you do.
I misspoke. Apologies. All right, that takes us to. I don't know if anybody's on from Weehawken, but the next one is item number 4, request for use public rights of way for the annual Fête de la Musique on June 25th and the Ridgway 1K on October 7th. Trish Oakland's name is on this for Weehawken and the Sherbino.
I can take care of it. She's not here.
Okay, and Preston, I'm on the board for the Sherbino. Does that? And it's not. It's really just a request for street usage. So I don't think there's really a conflict.
I don't see it.
Okay, just
And I'm doing the event. Cool. Just wanted to-
dating potential conflicts is really the more important thing. So, yeah, Pam, why don't you take it away since.
This is an annual, there's actually 2 annual events here. There is the Ridgway 1K run walk and the Ridgway Fête de la Musique. Both these events have been happening for a number of years now, and they're requesting the same things that they've done in the past. The 1K will be in a little different configuration than in the past, but they'll be crossing a few streets and alleys on October 7th. And the music festival, as you all know, that's going to be held on June 25th this year. That is closures of streets. That's Clinton from Laura to just before Lena, and the alleyway next to where she's designating this would be Cora to Frederick, and Charles from Cora to Lena. That pretty much sounds like the same configuration we approved last year.
I think it's basically the same thing.
Yeah. Yes. There's a map attached.
Right.
So they're just seeking requests to use the town right away and close off those streets.
Do you want these separate motions, Pam? Is that the best way to do this?
You know, it's the same organization. Sure.
Separate.
Separate, okay, I move to approve the special event permit for the Ridgway 1K.
Seconded.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Polly. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Graham,
Aye.
Kroger,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, that one passes unanimously. Thank you.
I move to approve the special event permit for Ridgway Fête de la Musique.
Second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Kevin this time. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Graham,
Aye.
Kroger,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys. Takes care of that. Moving right along, we have two public hearings tonight. First one is item number 5, emergency ordinance number 01/2023, extending a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications for minor subdivisions, lot splits, replats, plat amendments, multi-site developments, planned unit developments, and rezoning applications, and declaring an emergency precedent.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So before you is an emergency ordinance related to everything Mayor Clark just described. The temporary moratorium on development applications went into effect last August 10th to be exact. And since then, staff and our planning consultants at CPS have been working pretty diligently to pursue the steps necessary to update Chapter 7 of the Ridgway Municipal Code, the town zoning and subdivision regulations, in ways that would address the concerns that staff expressed last summer, as well as the issues that led to the adoption of the temporary moratorium. The memo before you lists the host of meetings and discussions that have been held with the Planning Commission over the last several months to advance the updates to Chapter 7. The emergency ordinance that was enacted last August sets the termination date of the temporary moratorium at the earlier of March 31, 2023, or the inaction of updates to Chapter 7, unless terminated earlier by the town council or extended in its duration by enactment of another ordinance by the town council, which is why we're here this evening. Given that more work is needed to advance the proposed updates I was just talking about, staff is recommending that council adopt a 4-month extension of the temporary moratorium. The new termination date would be July 31, 2023. And that extension would accommodate the remaining schedule that staff is proposing for the finalization of Ridgway Municipal Code Chapter 7 updates. Happy to answer any questions.
And I'll just add this, as a member of the Planning Commission, Russ and I have been intimately involved with this process, and it's been going really well. I would say, Russ, you can add any thoughts you have, but it's just been really impressive to see what a great job the consultants have done and how hard the Planning Commission members have really jumped in with both feet and given lots of feedback and had great discussions. And it's honestly, it's going better than I could have hoped. I was kind of a little worried about how the process was going to go, but it's gone really well, and I'm really excited about where we're at. And we just need a little bit more time to complete everything. So that's why we're here. Anybody in the audience have any questions? Oh, Russ, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I'll second what you said there, John. It's gone really well thus far, and I'm pleased with the progress. So a few more loose ends to tie up, but it's looking good.
Yeah, I think the development community is going to be really happy with the cleaning up and clarification of a lot of the code. So again, any comments or questions up here? Great deal.
Yeah, I'm just really glad. I remember we were trying to decide how long to do this. I know it's frustrating to come back for another resolution, but I think it's really great to see the list of all the meetings that have happened and see the plan for finishing it out. And I think that's the clarity that I was really hoping we would provide to everybody as we did this.
Yeah, we certainly have not been dragging our feet. It's a big job. There's a lot here. Chapter 7 is huge, but it's making great progress, and
Is there pressure from the building community to not extend this?
Not that I've heard.
So with that being the case, is 4 months enough cushion?
4 months is enough to accommodate that remaining schedule. So yeah, I would say so. Yes, I would say so.
Anybody in the audience have any comments, questions? Yeah. Yeah, come on up to Mike for us.
Yeah, I'm Kelly. Mary Beth and I have the Hell Creek Suites over on Palomino Trail there. And Preston, I was just curious, is there any consideration being given to carving out applications for affordable housing during this 4-month moratorium? I mean, it seems like
There are some exemptions provided in the emergency ordinance. I don't remember them off the top of my head. Are you aware of any affordable housing developments that have?
no, but I hadn't heard of any consideration of that. I might encourage some to come out of the woodwork.
Sure. That staff hadn't contemplated that. We have at least one truly affordable housing project currently in the queue that can continue through the queue. Has already made some progress on public improvements. But other than that, no, staff, I don't believe that provided an exemption unless Bo wants to chime in with what he recalls for affordable housing projects.
Just might suggest putting some feelers out. Community, see, but you know, it's not late to bring that up, but
I think there's so much in the pipeline already in construction or at some point in the process. Whatever on homes, various things like that. I think we would have heard if there was somebody that was like, I want to do an affordable housing project and your moratorium is keeping me from being able to do it. And I would also add that if somebody has a project they want to do that doesn't require any sort of subdivision or lot split or anything like that, they can go ahead and move ahead with it. So this is just for more elaborate projects that require some sort of subdivision.
Just so we be clear, if there was some project that came forward and they're like, we want to get going tomorrow, we don't want to wait for the new regulations, which I have a sneaking suspicion at this point, people may want to wait to function under the new, more clear regulations. But if they could, can council rescind this resolution and pass another one that would allow an exemption for a affordable housing development if that was a make or break thing?
That's absolutely possible, but
I'm just for your sake, peace of mind, if it was like, get it or lose it, I wouldn't anticipate that actually happening.
right. And if I can just add, when we're talking about the scope of the Chapter 7 updates, we're talking almost a pretty decent overhaul of the development review process altogether. So it would be terribly inefficient and ineffective to kind of accommodate another development via the old regulations, and then a couple months later have this brand new set. You know what I mean? It would make everything pretty convoluted. But again, as Mayor Clark was saying, standard residential building permits used by right type of stuff isn't impacted by this temporary moratorium. Yeah.
great. All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Bob. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom? All righty then, is there a motion?
I'll move to adopt emergency ordinance number 01-2023, extending a temporary moratorium, acceptance of applications of minor subdivision, lot splits, replats, plat amendments, multi-site developments, planned unit developments, and rezoning applications, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Seconded by Kevin. He just beat you out, Russ, sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Bramley,
Aye.
Bacon, Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to item number 6, another emergency ordinance number 02-2023, extending the expiration date of the San Miguel Power Association franchise and declaring an emergency. Bo, discuss your name on.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. So we have been in discussions with SMPA with respect to the franchise agreement that is in place. It's set to expire this April. Staff has taken an initial review of the existing franchise agreement, but we want to not be kind of rushed. So we're requesting a 3 months extension of the existing franchise agreement that will allow for the town and SMPA to get a new franchise agreement before the board, which will go through the typical adoption process.
Okay, makes sense to me. Anybody up here have any questions about that?
I got briefed on this before the meeting, just from our engineering folks. And this just allows everything that's in place to stay in place until.
Right.
So
Gives us-
monies will still be collected and remitted during this period.
Right, just gives us some breathing room to get the new one crafted, so. Any feedback either here in the room or on Zoom on this one? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve emergency ordinance number 02-2023. Emergency ordinance, the town of Ridgway, Colorado, extending the expiration date of the San Miguel Power Association, Inc. franchise and declaring an emergency.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's an emergency.
Feedback here. Motion been made and seconded. Motion made by Russ, seconded by Beth. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Scrambley,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Lakeman,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Riley.
Aye.
Righty. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving right along, policy matters. Item number 7, review and action on request from Alpine Homes Ridgway LLC regarding infrastructure work related to the Riverfront Village project.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I'll give some background and then turn it over to the development team. It was a few months back, the development team of the Riverfront Village project submitted a request letter to the town concerning various elements of the infrastructure work related to that project, Riverfront Village. Staff's response letter, and all these requests are appended to the memo. So I hope you had a chance to kind of look over them to get some more context. Staff's response letter took the position that some of the items listed in the request letter will need to be properly completed before a final plat application, accompanied by a subdivision improvements agreement guaranteeing construction of all other necessary improvements and as-builts can be considered by the town council. And in the last few days, the development team submitted another request for the town to allow for a final plat application to be submitted and considered by town council prior to the required electricity improvements being completed. The development team's experiencing some supply chain issues related to the transformers, right? Transformers, and they're expected to come in October or something like that.
They're saying
November. If council were to approve the request, those electricity improvements would need to be memorialized in the SIA. That would be a deviation from the Ridgway Municipal Code, specifically section 746B1. It states that no final plat shall be approved or recorded until the subdivider is properly completed and the town has approved street base, lights, traffic control devices, water, sewer, electricity, gas, telephone, and drainage system as adequate to serve each lot. So that's the request before you. And again, the development team's here to talk to the request.
Okay, thanks, Preston. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Jake Cantor. I'm the owner's rep for Alpine Homes Ridgway and Riverfront Village. So like Preston had said, we've been working diligently to complete all of our infrastructure requirements that were laid out in Exhibit B of the development agreement in order to get our final plat approval. And we expect to be completed with all that by around June. However, we are requesting to waive a small portion of item number 5, which is the electricity, CATV, and telephone, specifically the need to have the transformers installed. The issue is that back in July of 2022, we paid San Miguel Power Association in full for all the transformers and the associated labor to install them, with the knowledge that they have about a 1-year lead time. Now we know that they won't be on site until around November. We've tried to furnish the transformers ourselves through other means, but San Miguel Power has informed us that they have a policy that they do not allow third parties to furnish transformers for them. So we've kind of out of options. So prior to our target final plat approval date of June, we will have the pedestals of all the electrical conduit installed for this electrical system. So when the transformers arrive, all that we need to do is just hook them up and turn them on. We've already paid San Miguel Power in full for the labor to install those. So it's not an issue of funding, it's just an issue of supply chain taking way longer than expected. I also just want to say we're 100% committed to completing this project. We already have funding in place and we have the willingness to do it. It's simply a lead time issue that's out of our control. If we did have to wait an extra 5 months, we will need to be paying our general contractor general conditions during that time, which inevitably will raise the final price of the units, which we've been trying to avoid during this whole process. So we ask for this transformer requirement to be waived for our final plat approval so that we can build this project and not have any costly delays. So please let us know if you have any questions, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. And I'm John Morgan with FCI Constructors. I'm the superintendent on the project. I just came to support Jake if there were any questions that came.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So I also got briefed on the transformer. It's core steel. It's like plastics. Core steel is the problem. That's the supply holdup, which is apparently mostly manufactured mined in China. And they're trying to transfer manufacturing in the US, and it's got all of our transformers on a 36-month backlog for new large size transformers. My understanding though is the transformers on your project aren't needed until you actually connect them to the dwelling. So it shouldn't hold up the rest of the construction. The bigger issue, I think, is getting the overhead line that goes through the middle of the project underground in order to allow you to go vertical.
Yes, and I'm working with San Miguel Power on that, Ben Wiles. He's telling us that there is a way to complete the highway bore, run the feeders through there, and there's a way to get that done without the transformers to where we can remove the poles and have the power pass through to where it belongs. So I'm working on that. I don't have full confirmation yet, trying to set up a meeting with San Miguel and my electrician, but that's the latest. I'm told that it can be done.
And the transformers aren't required for your temporary power for construction. They're just required.
No,
for the whole project.
We have a temporary power feed right now that we're utilizing on site
By
already.
the way, I work for San Miguel.
Thank you. You know all about it then.
Yeah. I feel like this is a code item that comes up and is here for really good reason to make sure that staff can demand that those really required things be done, but it has come up more than once for people as a sticking point that can really lead to increased costs. Bringing contractors back multiple times to do things. So it is a deviation, but my gut impulse is we all know that supply chain issues are happening. And I can't see holding this up, for that, provided we can get a sufficient subdivision improvement agreement.
It would just be, just so we're clear, it would be just adding additional item to the SIA, right? So please go forward to.
Yeah, when the right time comes, we would just memorialize that.
Because if I'm not mistaken, the edits we're making in chapter 7 that we were just talking about include putting a whole lot more weight on SIA. No, actually resolve it.
No, I know. I'm just,
I'm just saying in the future, we shouldn't have this problem. It's the way I understand it.
Could be.
yeah.
I agree. I think this is something that doesn't make sense to penalize these guys for something that's out of their control. They paid for it. They can prove that. We can roll it into the SIA when the time comes.
Quite frankly, they're not going to have electricity to power the houses to sell if they don't have transformers. So like the SIA is like a thing on top of actually being able to have a marketable product.
Right. Anybody else? Russ, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, that sounds reasonable what they're talking about, so.
And JT, I see you joined us. You have anything you want to add? You're muted.
Unmute.
You're muted, JT.
Oh.
You're still muted. Oh, well.
There we go.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. No, I have nothing else to add right now. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have any questions on this item? Either in the room or on Zoom? All right. We need a motion on this, I'm sure.
Yes, the motion would be great, just to allow, sorry, I didn't propose a motion, but allow the deviation the requested deviation.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, motion's been made by Terry, seconded by Beth. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Graham-Lee,
Aye.
Kroger,
aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. There you go, guys.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 9, review and action on intergovernmental agreement between the town of Ridgway and Ray County concerning noxious weed management and control services. Press.
Oh, you forgot an item.
I think we forgot.
8.
Oh, sorry, I did jump past 8. Sorry. Item number 8 is update and possible action regarding granular activated carbon water treatment project. Joanne, are you here to talk to us about this, or is it? Joyce?
Good evening.
Oh,
We've been working on trying to get the granular activated carbon treatment unit together, and about a month ago, we decided that we were going to need to get proposals because of the cost, and to go out and get proposals before we got approval from the health, could adjust the equipment package to what was actually going to be furnished, rather than have to change it later. Proposals were due today. We got a single proposal from Filter Tech out of Grand Junction. They are the people that helped us with the pilot test and have been helping us evaluate how to move forward. The price for just the equipment package in their proposal was $335,749. I think the cost of the total project is going to be right about what we budgeted, which was $400,000. We need the town staff is going to do all the piping to and from the equipment, and we need to buy the materials for that. And the funding for the project is, we got a DOLA grant for $100,000 in 2020, and the balance is coming out of some COVID funds and some town reserves. Glad to answer any questions about it. If not, I can give you a recommended motion.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Joanne?
Do we have any estimates on what the additional materials and time that staff's gonna have to put into this to run the additional piping and whatnot?
I had gotten pricing about a year ago on the materials, and they were around $35,000.
Okay, so that would be an additional cost, or would that be rolled up in the DOLA and town allotment from the?
That would be in the amount, the 400 we budgeted. The 400 we budgeted included the equipment from a supplier, buying the piping materials, a little bit of contingencies and engineering.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Thanks.
I don't know how long it'll take the town. It'll depend on what the workload is and how many people we can put on it at any given time.
Okay. Supply chain an issue here?
Could be.
Okay,
The water meter for the outfall from the tank is suffering supply chain issues,
okay,
It's never ending.
but it'll take Filter Tech a while to build it too, so.
sure. Okay,
And we need to negotiate the final terms of the contract with them. But if council's okay, you could move to authorize staff to wrap up negotiations with Filter Tech and to award a contract and keep the project under 400,000.
all right.
Any other questions, comments? I personally am excited to see this finally getting close to getting accomplished.
Yeah, So I'll move to approve staff to finish negotiations with Filter Tech Systems and get started on this project.
Seconded.
Thank you. That's a motion by Russ, seconded by Polly. All roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Grambling,
Aye.
Kroger,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
I'm gonna say aye, but I want to make sure we include that it's not to exceed the 400,000. I left that off, sorry.
Thank you. Is that your second is good? with
My
that?
seconded is definitely good with that.
Vote is good with that. That was, I think we all understood that. Thank you, Russ.
Sure. My bad.
It's all good. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. Onward and upward on that one. That brings us to item number 9, which I erroneously started earlier. Review and action on intergovernmental agreement between the town of Ridgway and Ridgway County concerning noxious weed management and control services.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Before you use an IGA between Erie County and the town concerning noxious weed management and control services, very similar to the one that was put in place last year. The term of the IGAs for the 2023 calendar year. If approved, Erie County would be, or Erie County Vegetation Management specifically would be retained by the town to continue the services of conducting surveys of noxious weeds on all of the property. Making recommendations as to appropriate treatment, and then conducting treatments, including herbicide treatments as approved by the town in locations determined by both the town and the county. The creation over the last year and a half, or however long it's really been since the policy's been amended, has been tremendous. It's been great working with Julie Cole. I don't think she's not in the room or on the Zoom, but the collaboration's been great. Look forward to continuing that partnership. And actually, the county approved this IGA just a day or two ago, and the term on the IGA before you needs to read December 31, 2023, and not December 30, 2023. So staff will make that change.
Great, thank you.
I just want to add that when Julia presented to us and we agreed to go forth with weed mitigation, we knew it was going to be a couple of year process to get to a place where we could scale things back. So we could let things go longer than we needed to.
Yeah, good point. Any other comments or questions up here on council? Anybody in the audience here on Zoom have any comments or questions? You see a hand up from Vicky.
Hey, thanks. I just trying to stay abreast of this situation, and I posted initially, and as a local beekeeper, I don't know if we had any surviving bees at the apiary. It's still a little early to tell, but it's not likely. And I just am opposed to chemical use unless it's absolutely necessary. So I hope the town really minimizes this and doesn't make it like the long-term practice.
Definitely,
Thanks,
and
Vicky. That's definitely our
we, that was one of my major concerns last year when we did do this process, Vicky, and I do want to make sure that you know that I did ask about the bees and they have seemed to be okay. Nothing has kind of come of them dying immediately from the exposure to this. We are doing the best we can in the least toxic way possible, but still killing the noxious weeds in the area.
Great. Is there like a plan to like a maintenance plan to wean off the chemicals?
We have to get to a place where we can wean off the we need to hit a point where we can then maintain it in non-chemical ways. But a single year, if we just do it last year, don't continue now, we're going to need to use even more in the future.
and so the answer to your question is yes. Our goal is, and our plan to the best of our knowledge is to wean off this as soon as we get the weeds under control. But the thing that we have to keep stressing is that in order to keep the weeds under control long-term, once we get them under control with minimal and the best practices on chemical treatment, is to have more public involvement with maintenance, with ongoing maintenance and pulling weeds and helping with weed management. So, you know, it's going to take a community-wide effort if we think we're going to be able to wean ourselves off of chemical treatment long-term. So I just want to stress that.
Well, I'm not like totally supportive of that. I mean, that's like asking the community to patrol the streets. I mean, why can't we just hire people?
It's not at all that. It's, I think everybody benefits. I mean, pulling weeds isn't patrolling the streets for street speeders or something. It's helping out with dealing with a problem that we'd rather not have to deal with chemicals. That's
Okay,
all.
well, I'm just requesting that we just pay people to staff to do it instead of rely on volunteers. That's just all I have.
Well, I'm not saying we don't pay people to do it, and we just rely strictly on volunteers, but we need volunteers to help. There's no way we could hire enough people, we could afford to hire enough people to do it strictly unpaid help. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But I definitely appreciate your concerns, always have, and you just need to know that we don't like having to use chemicals any more than anybody else does. We just know that we need to get the problem under control, and we're at the point where it's the only way it's going to happen. So,
Thanks.
thank you. Anybody else? All right. We do need a motion on this, I believe.
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Ridgway County and Town of Ridgway concerning noxious weed management and control services as presented. Second.
Motion made by Kevin, seconded by Terry. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Graham,
Aye.
Kroger,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Passes unanimously. That takes us to item number 10. Discussion and direction regarding dedicated revenue source to address housing challenges. Preston.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I am going to try to not talk as much as I talked at the last work session, laying out a lot of options and possibilities. But as a reminder, you all sat at a workshop February 15th, so a couple weeks ago, to discuss possible funding mechanisms and consider whether to place any ballot questions before the electorate. The memo before you has a link to the staff report from that workshop, if anyone wants to check it out. But the direction garnered from that workshop was to research taxes in other communities that impact residential properties that are not being used as a primary residence or rental. In other words, a second home tax or a vacant home tax. It's called different things in different communities, or referred to different things in different communities. This included looking into the efforts made by Crescent View on their community housing tax proposal. Second direction was to look into revenue impact of a short-term rental tax at rates between 9% and 8%. Staff had already done some calculations for tax rates between 2% and 8%, I believe it was. Third item, look into revenue impact of an increased lodging tax at rates between 4% and 7%. And finally, further explore an inclusionary zoning fee in lieu that would allow developers looking to construct market rate housing developments to either provide on-site affordable units or pay fees in lieu thereof. So staff took that direction, did some additional research, number crunching, and the memo before you has, I think, some pretty solid information for you all to chew on, and hopefully looked over already, and inform this conversation here this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions or and look forward to the direction or action here on how to proceed.
Okay, who wants to start?
A lot here. I guess should we start with short-term rental tax discussion? You would take it in order of this memo?
Sure.
Oh, that you skipped that vacant home tax.
No, that's true.
I mean, if you want to start a second, first, second. Sure, tax, that's fine too.
If Preston, if we're looking at the second homes or vacant homes, do we have any idea of how many second or vacant homes we have in town?
I don't have that information. I don't know that we have that in the clerk's office.
No, we would have to go to the assessor's office and work with them to try to determine that.
Our lovely paper did an article about November of 2021, which was based off of census data. And town of Ridgway, skimming this article, sorry. So I don't know how to control that on my iPad.
Thank you so much for looking or providing that info.
Oh, I quoted this at our our meeting as well.
There is a find function.
I don't know how to use it though. If I was on a laptop, I'd have it. Anyway, it's not like terribly high, but it is, I'll find it.
Yeah, I guess part of the reason for asking that question was trying to figure out what kind of actual income we could make off of this. And then it seems like maybe not the best option here. Hasn't had a whole lot of traction in the state as at this point, and I'm really kind of curious what our potential benefit from this would be. So I guess we'd have to have a better idea of that count before we actually knew if this was going to be a worthwhile approach or not.
In April of 2020, according to the census, we had 89 vacant units of 600. So we were at 90 out of 600 units in 2020
In Ridgway.
vacant. Yes, in Ridgway.
So
That's
a higher number. Higher number. I thought it would be,
Yeah, absolutely.
15%. That's 15%.
That's defined as vacant for 6 months or more.
That nobody registered it as their primary residence in the census.
And that's 2 years old.
Short.
That's 2 years, that's 2 years old. So there is that, but it's fairly accurate. I mean, the census office generally does try to track people down and actually get an idea of.
Yeah, just we've had a lot of growth in the last couple of years.
We've
I
also had
guess.
buildings that are not necessarily owner occupied. I mean, I would
say
wager
that's
that
right.
we're within the same, close to the same percentage, if not higher, of
That's
vacant.
what my best
This
guess.
one seems like it's one of the more controversial of the choices.
I would be really, really interested what our community, like members who live here, think of that. Like, I really am. I know it failed in Crested Butte, but I would be, why was that voted down? Generally, like,
it's been successful elsewhere, and it's been, I was doing some reading, it's been successful in other countries. With the same goals as ours, which is to make it so that the average person can continue to live in our town. So I'm willing to keep exploring it. It maybe shouldn't be our number one option, but I think it's worth exploring.
I think it's the one that has the least impact on residents to raise money. Whereas people may have a smaller home and they can't house all of their family members when they come to visit and they're paying a lodging. I mean, I think it is the lowest impact on full-time residents of Ridgway.
And if we're looking at that $2,500 and those 90 homes, that is almost $250,000 a year. It's $225,000 that we could.
Or we don't get it and those homes then open up for long-term rentals, which would be
ideal.
really great.
Yeah, that's the negative incentive kind of built into this.
Right, it's a negative incentive. I mean, there's obviously the fundraising mechanism, but those are homes that exist. They have COs, they don't have supply chain issues. So, like, they're there.
And of course, unless the tax forces people to rent them out.
Well, but if it doesn't, then we chip away at close to $250,000 and take that in and use that towards housing. Anyway, I can agree that maybe it doesn't need to be the number one, but I definitely, just because of its lesser impact on people living and working in Murray County, I would not want to throw it off the table.
I think it deserves some looking.
So just to kind of play off that, where do you see the negative impact on the people of the county with the short-term rental tax?
Well, I mean, having hosted 5 family members in my house at one time at 1,100 square feet, if they're coming for more than overnight, they can't all stay at my house again. I mean, I think it's impacts to people coming to visit. I think there are some downsides. I'm not saying it's commiserate to an increased sales tax or anything. I'm saying the potential impact to a resident is higher with a short-term rental tax or whatnot, because yeah, if I have a 2-bedroom house and my family's like, let's all go visit, it'll be a family reunion party, we're getting a short-term rental. It may be super rare, so it's not a big impact. So maybe that's not the full wing, but a vacant second home tax can be entirely avoided by renting long-term to somebody.
Yeah, it's an interesting distinction. And the point you were making last month, or the workshop, Beth, was just the number of people that are trying to do one of these more creative ways to help them pay their mortgage. Putting another tax on them is certainly a hardship.
I think that that's one that, since you brought that up, Beth, in the workshop, that has kind of weighed in the back of my head quite a bit, and has kind of moved the short-term rental tax down a little lower, in my opinion.
But I would say that's a place where if we want to go that way, we already have, it's already noted on their license that it is a primary residence. I don't know if that means then, I don't know what our standard of proof for it being your primary residence is when they come in to apply for that. And if that would have to be beefed up, if there would be like a financial implication for paying a lower or not paying a short-term rental tax or extra short-term rental tax on that. I think other of you brought that up. I think that's important.
One of my personal experiences with people that rent their homes out short-term is that it's a disruption to the neighborhood. I've experienced that multiple times, and possibly having a tax would help filter the people that do rent the places so that you're not bringing in, 18 people into a home, or, have 5 cars parked out front, and there's parties late at night, and all the downside of having your what is at least in my neighborhood, it's kind of a family neighborhood, disrupted by people from out of town routinely coming through and consuming all of the on-street parking and all that kind of thing. So maybe, I'm not sure that this tax would change that or encourage a different type of clientele. And I don't want to be too judgmental, but it is something I noticed with short-term rentals, is that it's changes the character of the neighborhood.
Right.
I think it's also important though that when you're renting from someone who can say, this is my neighborhood, I need you to treat my neighborhood with respect. I mean, and you have someone you can talk to. In me, like the most disruptive thing is you never meet that neighbor who owns that house, who's renting it out. You don't have someone to go to be like, oh my God, the light is shining in my house. Or your renters are bringing 10 cars and they take up all the street parking. Is that something you can communicate to them? It's like, how much parking is
lights on all my
home? That's what I just said. They shine in my bedroom. Yeah, like that you don't have that touch point versus if it's somebody's house, like I should mostly hope that it does help that you don't want your neighbors to be frustrated with you because you rented your house. First of all, if you're on site, then you're there. It's a part of your house. But if I rent my house while I'm gone in the summer for a few weeks and there's an issue, like neighbors are calling me like, oh my God, what is happening at your house?
So that's the difference between the VRBO and the other one, Airbnb.
JT, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, just because we were yo-yoing back and forth between these two options that we're talking about, and I did want to go back to the vacant homes component, and I wanted to get a sense of where we are if we do decide that we want to explore this more in terms of the timeline, whether to in terms of this year. is it possible to do some kind of direct mail poll on or hybrid online poll as well from all the stakeholders in the community to get a pulse of how a ballot measure would be approached, or is the mechanism best just to decide whether we want to put this to the voters or not?
But if you get replies from people who aren't registered voters because they have an address, that skews that.
Well,
It would have to be to all registered voters.
it depends on how scientific and how formal you want the poll to be. Do something very informal that's not going to be very scientific in nature. Get some responses there. You could do something, again, much more formal with folks meeting the criteria to be able to take the poll and get some more scientific results there. That's much more expensive.
Yeah, you could always send them home and register.
So in other words, just to get a sense, the most efficient way to do this then is to come up with what we think is the best language for the ballot measure, put it out there, and with all the pros and cons outlined as you would with any measure, and just see if it flies or not. I'm just trying to figure out, like, here we are in March, right? And I know there's a timeline for filing to get things onto the ballots. Pam's spoken to that before. I was trying to get a sense of, like, at what point do we have to make a decision on using that as a mechanism, as a potential mechanism for both garnering some income by penalty versus having a discussion in the community about it before trying to go forward with it in this calendar year.
All right, do we have to, if we want to propose a ballot question, we have to get the language to the county by sometime in July, is it?
You'd need to ask Bo that. I think Bo has that.
Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, so we just need to provide a notice of intent to participate in July. And then we would need to, in essence, in August, we would need to have our ballot language adopted. It typically, the deadline is just after Labor Day when we have to have our ballot language set. So we'd have to have the notice of intent to participate in July. And then in all likelihood at the regular or special meeting in August, you need to set that language.
Gotcha, thank you.
You know,
So to that point, then, if that's the timeline we're working on, I guess that puts our feet to the fire to decide, do we want to pursue that in some shape or form sooner than later? And that way we're kind of forced to discuss the finer points of it? Or are we at a point where it's still, we need to have that side by side with the discussion about the short-term rental percentage increase?
From the workshop, I think we all agreed upon the fact that we're going to have to explore probably each of these in the future as income sources and probably things that we haven't even thought of. And so maybe topics like the short-term rental fee that are going to take more time to explore. Isn't the lodging tax the lowest hanging fruit and kind of the quickest and easiest way to get dollars rolling in, and maybe the least contentious? As we move
I
forward.
agree.
And
That's
so
a
maybe
point I made in the last workshop too, which is how much money are we looking to raise and what are we gonna use it for? So if without a target in mind, how do we choose what is the proper mechanism to raise money?
I actually totally disagree. Because I think my goal for what I want to do is build as much housing as I can that's affordable in Ridgway. But that's
How many dollars is that?
But that's, we know building housing
So
is
as it
extremely
relates to
expensive.
the fee in lieu, this is where this came to mind is, you know, you could potentially raise $100,000 as a fee in lieu. What would you do with the money? It's not enough to build a house. Is it enough to pay for tap fees? Yeah, it's enough to do a variety of small things. But if we don't have a target in mind of what we're gonna use the funds for, how do we justify going out to the public with a vote, a ballot measure, asking to raise money with no particular idea of how much we're gonna raise, what we're gonna, what we're looking.
We do have a target. We need to offset tap fees. We need to offset.
Well, what does that equate to?
Depends on how many options of
Yeah,
houses I have.
if you're gonna not move forward this until we have an actual number,
It's too late.
we're never gonna.
Well, I just think we need to have a goal. It's
Okay,
hard.
I would like $500,000 in the bank, so I can grant something to a developer when they come to me and say, cool, we want to build houses, but guess what? Our deed restricted units, even if we take zero profit, are gonna be $425,000. Can I make a grant, like, can we do something to defray that cost?
So that's
Actually,
a target to build one unit.
it's a target to maybe we could grant 25 grand towards that, and now it's a $400,000 house.
This is the discussion I want.
This is, I guess it does, it depends. Do I have $1 million to hand out and give grants, or can I have $30,000 and I'm paying for tap
Well, let me
fees?
get more specific. So in the example of Crested View raising 2,500, first of all, that's a resort community, right? It's a ski town. So it's a different character than our town. So if we didn't use $2,500 as a target, what would be the target? And then if we based it on 90 homes, are we looking to raise $250,000? 100,000, what is it that we're asking the public to agree to? When it comes down to the actual dollar amount that we're looking to raise.
I guess what I'm saying, Terry, is it depends on which mechanism we go with. If we're taxing a second home and we're asking for $2,500 a year, which doesn't feel like a whole lot for the privilege of removing a piece of housing from the community. You are not letting someone live there. We are lacking kids in our schools. We're like, I understand, but my point being,
But you don't want it to be a punitive measure. You want.
oh, I kind of do.
Well, that's. Be very clear.
Oh, I have never, ever not been clear. It is detrimental to communities to remove housing from the stock. You have either it sits vacant and no one lives there. They're not participating in the community. They're not waving at their neighbors. When their neighbor leaves their lights on in the car, then no one comes over and says, hey, yo, your lights are on.
I get it. Just, I think it needs to be quantified. That's, maybe I'm being too much of an engineer.
Yeah, yes. Because this is about
Detail.
and if we get
That's
to
not
a
what we're
point
doing right now.
where there's excess housing and
So
people,
among the four measures, we just want to raise too much money costs. That very well.
well, do you think we have anywhere near enough money to do what we want to do in affordable housing right now?
What do we want to do with affordable housing right now?
We want to do everything. We want to do.
So we want to build a house with
We're not developers, but we need to be able to fund from, well, I agree with Terry, step back and think about all the ways that we've donated funds or.
And we can quantify that.
Or
What we donated, we can.
But wouldn't like to quantify that, I'd like to do 10 times more than we've
Yeah,
been able
I
to
mean,
do.
there's no limit to the amount that we could do that. If you look at like that housing study, the gap thing that Region 10 did. Our gap is so huge, we can't build enough affordable housing.
But is it incumbent upon the town to raise the money?
It's incumbent on the town to raise enough money to not be making the taxpayers have to pay for the affordable housing. That's my take.
Well, that's.
And that means offsetting tap fees, offsetting building permit fees, actually contributing money towards the home trust. We need to be able to give hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to a wide variety of efforts to make enough affordable housing so that we don't end up with a town that's mostly second homes and people have to drive from Montrose to work here.
Terry, I agree with you in principle, in the sense that if we keep adding taxes or in different places, it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts to the existing stakeholders and homeowners. But at the same time, I'm with you in the sense that if we're going to make efforts to do things, even if it's in your eyes, it seems like it's a nominal return. I want to make sure too that we are doing it not just to tax, because tax is a low hanging fruit, but to actually get us somewhere. And I think all of these mechanisms that we're discussing have to stay on the table, along with others that we have yet to bring to the table, so that we can figure out how to, even if it seems nominal, to have some kind of offering, so we can get matches from any and all directions to help facilitate the development of things for affordable housing. But I think we have to be cautious and prudent. We just, in how much we raise a tax, be it on the short-term rental tax, lodging tax, And in terms of the punitive element for the second homeowners, that's why I was asking about whether there's a mechanism for us to be able to poll folks to see how people react to it on first blush. But I don't think we need to have a full target number. Yeah, and all the metrics that are involved in that to determine whether or not we can go to the voters and ask for them to approve some kind of incremental measure on trying to get some money into the collective coffers.
I completely agree with you, GT, and I also want to bring up again, I know we spoke about this some time ago now, but with the lodging tax, currently 70% of that goes to tourism and promotion. Do we need to take a look at that number? Is 70% going to tourism and promotion the best and most efficient use of resources?
Well, Polly, that goes back to the discussion we had with the chamber and the legacy that was on that, right?
Yep.
And we decided that that would be a nominal contribution to us and a major hit to them. But trying to figure out a collaborative way to work with them to help them change their, not just semantics, but tact and drive some revenue as well, and somehow be, for the integrity of the community, not just from a financial point of view.
Totally.
But to facilitate is that where you're going with that?
I guess I was looking at these numbers in front of me with the tax percentages, and I'm wondering if we could ask the voters to both raise the lodging tax from 3.5% to 5%, 6%, 7%, and maybe split that money or those monies 50-50 with us. And then they wouldn't take a huge hit and we would be getting a sizable amount more money.
This is back to where I was going, obviously, it's identifying targets. With the 70% now, it's based on 3.5% lodging tax, right? So
yes,
from that, the chamber has a budget of how much money they expect. So they have an absolute dollar amount that they're budgeting based upon the current ratio and the current percentage. If our goal is just raise as much money as possible, we pick the largest number in all of these options.
No, because
Let me finish my point. If, for example, the chamber needs $120,000, if that's their budget, then we can look at which percentage it is and then alter the percentage distribution accordingly. But that's based upon a number, right? It's based upon a budget. So you tend to work back from what you need, figure out how you raise that money.
Well,
but I disagree, Terry, because there's downsides to doing all of these things. So when I say I want to raise as much money as possible, don't mean going to drain every, I want lodging tax to be 100%. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm saying, because at some point,
Well, your
it's
choices, he's giving you two
I know,
choices.
well, I understand that, but there's a line where if we're charging so much for a lodging tax, that hurts all, we've talked about the downsides of a second home, a short-term rental tax, but that's gonna hurt our lodging. So there's pieces of that, and that's why I pointed out, I would like to figure out a way where some of the negative impacts, we want to invest in Ridgway, but we don't want to invest in Ridgway with living here and my family being here and being part of a community. Part of that has costs to our community. And so when I think about a vacant home tax, we're kind of assessing that cost to the community, to that investor. So that's why I would suggest something like that. You raise the lodging tax, that's putting an additional cost. It's going to raise the base rate to rent a room at the lodge or a Chipeta. Is that going to impact people's desire to stay there and come in and spend money at restaurants and businesses? Because I think we would all agree, it's great when Ridgway Lodge and Suites is full. It's great when Chipeta is full. Those aren't rooms that we're trying to house people in, right? So when I say we're trying to raise as much money as possible, is these are all going to be incremental pieces to get us incrementally closer to our goal, where we're not seeing restaurants cut their hours. because they don't have workers, but we're not seeing people commuting from Montrose with its environmental costs.
And Terry, the only thing I throw out about the lodging tax and your point about the 70-30 split with the Chamber of Commerce for tourism and promotion is that that's the one place where we have that sort of designation. We wouldn't move forward with this without getting the RAC people in the room so that we can talk about. I know they want more money. They want to be able to pay their staff more. They want more staff. I totally agree that there's a discussion that needs to be had about how much more do we need to promote this area when it's already getting kind of overrun. But the local business community certainly doesn't want us talking about, having less people come visit. The shoulder season issue is still a huge one for the chamber. We want our businesses to succeed. So that absolutely we need to, on that particular one, we would have to talk numbers. We'd have to figure out ways to make sure that they're still getting adequate funding for what they're trying to do in the big picture. But
While we're on
these
that
other ones,
particular one, let's just stay on that for a moment. Based on the 3.5%, my calculation is that they get it roughly 102. Probably have the April number. Somewhere just over 100,000 right now. If we were to raise it to 5%, for example, then we could go to 50% and still give them their current budget.
yeah,
But I think that needs to be part of the.
yeah, and I'm agreeing with you. That when it comes to lodging tax, there's more discussion that needs to happen about numbers. I still think though that when we're talking about particularly the short-term rental tax potentially and or this second home, what I would call speculation tax, that we don't need to know a target amount of money we're trying to raise for that kind of funding source, because we can't possibly raise enough money to make the dent we need to make long-term in our affordable housing. Now, I want to give, there's some people waiting on Zoom a long time to make a comment. Some of you in the room may want to make a comment too. Jake, I saw your hand up first. Jake Neese.
Yeah, hi, Jake Neese, County Commissioner, and also on the board of the Home Trust. To address some of Terry's concerns, just a quick reminder that the Home Trust is developing a $12 million affordable rentals and childcare project in the town of Ridgway. And it's really necessary in order for this organization or any organization to have local contributions of matching funds if we're going to go looking for larger grant opportunities. You can really just look right next door to the city of Ouray at how they've been using their short-term rental tax funds to magnify those funds into bigger projects. And I think that would be wise for the town to have. There are a lot of grant opportunities out there and they all require matching funds. Furthermore, the Home Trust is hoping to do ongoing management of deed restrictions, which is going to be an ongoing cost to some extent. And so that's another place where those funds could go. So I think it'd be really, I think it's a really good thing for the town, like the city, to have a steady source that they can use for matching funds and for ongoing operations. Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. Andrea.
Hey, so I just, I'm not sure how many times you guys may be going to the voters for something like a mill levy, but it may just be something to think about. Even if folks are really supportive of affordable housing right now, you may want to be strategic in case, they vote yes on the first one, and then you come back to them with a second, tax that they have to vote on, and they, feel that, we already voted in favor of a tax for affordable housing. Why do we have to do it again? So you may just want to be strategic, about, maybe the one that brings in the most money, putting that forward first in case you don't get the second one. And then I think it may be good if you do go down the route of, putting it out to the voters. Most of the time, I think you guys probably feel the same way. Most voters want, some detail, like what is this money being used for? So in that respect, I mean, Terry has a good point, just if you were at least able to, maybe not the number, but if you were able to not just say, hey, this is affordable housing and that's it, but maybe line out, this is for land banking, this is for tap fees, this is for, and just give voters a little bit more detail into what this would be applied to regarding affordable housing, that may help your case. So I just wanted to mention those two things.
Thanks, Andrea. Let's see.
Tanya had her hand raised.
Tanya, you were up there first. Go ahead, Tanya.
Yeah, sorry, I lowered it too quickly. I was like, oh, it's me, I'll lower it. So I am, even though on the screen it says Uncompahgre Watershed Partnership, I am not speaking for them. I just happened to be logged into that. And so when I logged on, I am also, I'm speaking as the board secretary of the Ridgway Area Chamber of Commerce. I no longer work for them. Now I volunteer for them. And I'm also not speaking for the whole board, but I did inform the board of this discussion tonight. And I did inform them of my opinion. And I just thought I'd share a little bit since, you know, that it was discussed, which is that I really actually have watched those second home taxes. And I think that they are good, but they are also controversial and not proven in our state. So I can see where there'd be some difficulty doing it, but that still, I think, based on how much money could come in, also seems like a good option. The short-term rental extra taxing, to me, that doesn't seem like a great option based on the financial numbers you've shown me. And as far as the lodging tax, based on the numbers that are in the report, and based on the continuing discussion, and also increasing the tax from what it currently is, I think it really, it's a possibility now for the Ridgway Chamber Board to, to look at, would 60% be enough for us, for instance. I looked at the 6% tax and going 60-40, and to me, that seems like it's still supporting the chamber enough, as well as putting some more money over to the affordable housing. I think if it went 50-50, it would start creating issues, especially if it was a lower tax. But based on the conversations we've had with a couple of the lodging owners, they don't think it will impact the customers coming to them if the tax is, around somewhere between 5 and 7%. So that's my input based on what you have put out for this agenda packet this time.
Thanks, Tanya. Really appreciate it. Russ, go ahead, of course.
Yeah, so kind of surprised that nobody has talked about the inclusionary zoning fee in lieu. I think this is a really good option, but what I really want to say overall is I think this fee in lieu is a good approach, and I think that it should be combined with one of the other ones as the approach. I don't think that it's any one solution is going to get us everywhere we want to be, but if we can do a combination with two of these, and I still really think that the inclusionary zoning fee in lieu is probably one of our better approaches. It all depends on how we wanted to structure it, but what in our little town, what appeared to be the best to me was to do the production cost method. Either way would work, but the production cost method. And then the basis on how you set that up would be working up AMI values on what you have them go with a lot of on-site construction. We don't really want to go off-site because we don't want to make it a them over here and everybody else over here kind of thing. So kind of commingling them, which is why I would like the on-site in this. And so they could build these things. We would use an AMI adjusted value as the affordable price, and then they would have to fund that extra piece in between the market value, right? So that has the potential to provide a fair amount of influx in my view. And then also in the event that, let's say perchance that the recession hits tomorrow and development ceases to go forward, That's why I like the idea of coupling that with one of these other taxes potentially, so that we could continue to have a revenue stream to put into that. If that happens, if a recession happens and everything falls apart tomorrow, we're probably going to be able to find some affordable housing one way or another. We probably need to build it up some more, but if we can just get some money and then have to help fund and again, as Andrew was saying, put it towards tap fees, put it towards those sorts of things to help offset costs for other developments coming in. So that's kind of my take on it. I haven't heard anybody say anything about in lieu, so I'm looking for some other comments there.
I actually have a question about your feeling about the on-site building, and I get that there's some benefits in like to our contractors community and to labor within the community, like I get that. But when we start talking about trying to bring housing in that's hitting a price point, there is a reason Wetterhorn Homes is going with, oh my God, the modular home was actually trying to think of the company out of Big West. Like we are seeing some economies in doing that for people. How does that impact a resident trying to build, like it's not affordable, it's market rate, they've bought a lot and they want to bring that in. Are we increasing their costs? I guess why the anti-offsite bill?
Can I ask what you mean by onsite? Are you thinking that we can ask them to, a developer who's building, like, for example, Riverfront Village, if this was coming in today, we would ask for a fee in lieu of, but then you turn around and tell them that they had to allow these units that we were going to build with the in lieu fees on this project's property?
Right, that's what the onsite intends for, and so that way.
I don't see how we can do that. There's no way we can ask them to pay an in lieu of fee, which the fee in lieu of is that they're not actually providing housing. But then we turn around and say, but that these units have to be built on your property. That's totally backwards of what the whole in lieu of thing means, I believe. And let me just also add, I've been talking to some people and thinking a lot about this in lieu of fee. And I really think, the more I think about it, the more I think it's a bad idea, because what it does, and especially when as I think it works, is that if you require a developer to either build affordable housing units at whatever percent we require, 10% of their units or 20% of their units, or we ask them to pay an in lieu of fee. If they choose the in lieu of option, they don't have to build any affordable housing units in their project at all. And then they end up with a project that's all really high-end units and is more likely to be all second homeowners.
I had a similar concern. If our goal is to have more affordable houses, which is the more applications we have the developers to build a affordable house, I take money that we would use and trickle it out into a variety of different buckets.
Yeah, and I think that the better route in terms of dealing with inclusionary zoning, the whole idea of demanding that developers build a certain percentage of affordable units in their new projects, is that we demand that they be truly affordable, and that even if that means that they have to lose some money on the units, and that's the equivalent of them paying a fee, which achieves.
And we actually would get a
The goal of getting an affordable.
So, and I've had a couple of discussions, the newest planning commission member, Pam Foister, we thought really strongly. She said she'd seen in lieu of fees happen in some of the communities she's lived in previously, and it was just, it didn't work. It basically created more high-end housing and fewer affordable housing units.
That would be my concern.
So it's a tricky one. And the last thing I'll say is that I don't think any of us think that any one of these solutions is the only solution we're going to need. I think we're going to need at least two, and maybe others that we haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I don't have to can right. I agree with you, John. The fee in lieu of, if you look at how we've used over the years, the fee in lieu of for parking, it's like, I'm just going to build this thing out and not provide the parking, and I'll pay just $3,000 and walk away from it.
Right.
And we've never built that parking.
No.
With that $3,000 because it doesn't actually pay for it.
Right.
So if they're not going to put in a unit, then the fee in lieu of ought to actually pay for a unit.
Should pay for it.
I think it ought to be a penalty. And I was going through the numbers on Solar Ranch on our side of it. And we have probably 25% of our built structures are, maybe most of them are occupied, but we've got about a quarter that are, we would term as vacant. And the short-term rental is not really much of an impact over there. But I also think if you put a tax or put any kind of fee on the short-term rental, the non-cap short-term rentals, the in-house,
the Airbnb model,
I think that's a penalty we don't want to go with, because those people are saying it's getting expensive to live here, and this is the only way I can do it.
right?
But if you have people who intentionally are building a structure
To rent.
to short-term rent it, then put a big penalty on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of what Beth was talking about, we have no community. We've got one end of Solar Ranch that is like, it's vacant half the year. There's nobody there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't provide for a good community.
Right.
And I think that ought to be the focus. And I think if you really want to get extreme, put 40 tiny homes out here on this lot. And put the parking at the far end where you can't build residential, and that would be a starting point. Because Telluride can do big projects because land banking takes that cost away, and that's a killer. Because we had one development over there, close to the core, and the guy paid over $1 million or $500,000 for the lot. He's going to build 6 units on it. That's adding $100,000 to each of those units. That means they're not affordable.
Right.
Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Ken Miller. Yeah, I just live down the street. I don't own a second home. I don't rent anything for anybody. But I think taxing second homes or homes that are not occupied, I think that's a really bad idea. I don't think if you put that to the vote, there's enough people like me to say, I don't think so. You know, and I'm generally opposed to increasing taxes on anything. I'm really opposed to using that tax money to subsidize affordable housing. I think that's probably not popular with you, but I think the market ought to dictate that.
So you just because you're here, so you're opposed to it because you think we should just let housing be market rate.
Right, I do.
Okay.
Do you understand though that, I mean, just curious.
If people can't afford to move here, then they shouldn't.
Well,
There's no such thing. There's no such thing.
I bought a house, my land's here 10 years ago. If I got a job tomorrow, I couldn't buy a house here ever.
I couldn't buy a house here now either.
But so we're not gonna have teachers in our schools? We're not gonna have cops? We're not gonna I mean, this is.
We're just curious about how we make it so that the people that drive the cop cars and teach our kids.
Serve our coffee.
And work in the restaurants, work in the stores, how we can provide those jobs. I mean, if they can't live here, they need to commute from Montrose, they need to commute from Olathe or elsewhere.
That's the way it's been. Look at all the people traffic going to Telluride.
But do you think that's a good thing?
They can't afford to live there either.
Right, I mean, we're just trying to make it so that the people this town needs to survive in terms of jobs for basics like teachers and cops can live here.
I know I was one. So,
yeah,
but if I couldn't afford to live here, which people coming now can't, they have the gal that replaced me, she had moved south to Monroe.
Right.
There's no way she could afford this, and that was 20 some years ago.
Right.
It's not, I don't think that's going to change, but anyway, I'm not in favor of using tax money to do that.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks for answering the follow-ups too. I appreciate it.
John.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Terry, how many of the Semigo employees live here?
2.
How many employees do you have?
Out of this office, there's 27.
Yeah.
We actually have to, we give them a shuttle to shuttle them back and forth to Montrose.
Okay, and that's been that way for quite a while.
Yeah, and I managed to build here before it was too crazy. Otherwise, I couldn't afford to live on the salary they pay me.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a problem. I don't know what the answer is, but so it sounds to me like
Yes.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Bob. Come on.
I'm not sure you're gonna want to hear from me, but I'm gonna give you some 2 cents. Yeah, first of all, just my observation from reading about the situation in the newspaper coverage and all. It seems to me that the piecemeal approach that's been taken so far, where you dole out some money for this and some money for that, it hasn't really resulted in affordable housing. It's resulted in housing that's a little less expensive than it otherwise would be. But it hasn't hit the target of affordable housing. And that's why I think, to Terry's point, I think it would be really helpful to have some goal-oriented information with this problem. Like, what is it affordable? And maybe there's 3 answers to that. Typically there is, it's income related. But at least I think there should be some study of that and come up with a definition of what's affordable for Ridgway. What is the affordable housing, target? And then at that point, I think it would probably be more effective if you just set your sights on so many affordable units a year for the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, have a plan that the voters can kind of relate to. I get that it's really easy to just say we want to have $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it is to throw towards this problem. But I'm not sure that's going to resonate with voters. So just, I hope you'll take that into consideration. I know it involves a lot of work and a lot of numbers and that kind of a thing, but coming from the business world, that kind of a proposal where you just want a bunch of money to throw at a problem, you'd be sent packing. And so I just think it needs a little more specificity so that people can get a good idea of what they're voting on. I wanted to make a point that Terry raised also about the problem with short-term rentals. That's not supposed to happen. Every short-term rental owner pays, I don't know, $400 for every 2 years for each rental. And that money is supposed to go partly towards enforcement of the regulations that we have. So I think that's kind of a bad rap for short-term rentals. I wouldn't want people to think that that's typical. And to the extent that is happening, the town needs to be notified of that. And it'll get dealt with. That short-term rental will be taken away. I mean, these licenses are conditional. That's one of the conditions, that may not disturb the community and the neighborhood. So I'm sorry you're dealing with that, but
It may be isolated to my experience.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
but something can be done about it. I mean, it's not something you have to live with.
That's a great point. Thank you for.
Sure, yeah. I also wanted to say that, John, I think you touched on this, but the chamber is not helping. I mean, we all understand what the chamber does, but with respect to promoting Ridgway, and believe me, we've benefited from the overall promoting of Ridgway for sure. But it isn't helping with affordable housing problem. And if that is at the top of the list, towards the top of the list, I think you might tone it down a little bit. And the money can be part of that. We don't belong to the chamber. We did at one time, a long time ago, and we never felt that for what we did, it was working for us. But we certainly don't feel like we need it to grow our business. If I could, I want to just ask a general question. And Preston, I'm sorry, I haven't read your report. Didn't attend the workshop. I probably should have done that, but I'm not hearing any discussion of who's going to benefit from solving the affordable housing problem in Ridgway. Who's going to benefit? All I've heard so far is
I've got some answers for you.
Okay,
For kids. I've been teaching in the area for 9 years. I have watched at least 8 teachers leave the area because they can't, they're professionals. I mean, teachers are a group of people who want to own a house. They don't want to rent forever. And they definitely don't want to raise families where their house could be sold that they're renting and have a turnover. So our kids are going to benefit. Our businesses are going to benefit. We've all seen it. Restaurants have cut hours. They have cut days that they're open. Why? Not because they don't have people who want to sit in the seats and buy their food, but because they don't have people to open. Pool and Uray, they're not here in Ridgway, but they're part of our county. People come to stay in our lodging to go there. They've had days where they haven't been able to open because of staffing.
The simple answer is.
It's literally, it's the fabric of the community.
I understand.
So, our residents, we had to extend our response time for our marshals so that they could live further into Montrose. So we had to extend that time. It's beneficial. I think we all like the idea of law enforcement living here and being part of the community, not just coming in to enforce that law. I think that's the case for just about any service. You want anyone you call to, I want them to be my neighbor. I want to be part of their community. That's why I moved to a town like Ridgway. And I get that there's concerns and we don't want to burden people with taxes, but we also don't want to set a minimum wage of $35 so someone has a chance to, because that's not sustainable either. So it's either market forces on one end or the other, and where can we try to exert some control to make that happen? If you haven't met somebody who is having employee issues as a result of housing, or met someone who has had to leave because of housing in this area, I'd be surprised. Can I actually ask you a really quick question? Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for answering my question.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say, you mentioned, oh my God, now I just lost my train of thought after I answered you. It'll come back.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
let me continue.
Yeah.
Interrupt me.
yeah, go ahead.
That answer is exactly what I expected. But what I'm not hearing is any of those constituencies paying for the affordable housing. I'm hearing a very small select group being targeted for funding affordable housing. If it's the community, the people that live here that really want the affordable housing, I think they'd be more than happy to pony up.
But I don't think our businesses caused the problem. I don't think if you went to any of our restaurant owners, they're not like rolling in it because there's second homes being purchased. In fact, they're being harmed. They are not causing the problem. Does that make sense?
I can see your point. If the community was causing the problem or the businesses were causing the problem, I can see your point. But you're asking to get blood from a stone, essentially. You're asking people to pay more in taxes to provide the affordable housing that this community needs to remain in the community. When
they want to hire community members. If they were using a visa program to bring workers from outside in and they wanted housing for them, yes, you need to find that money.
All I'm saying is that it seems to me that the people who are benefiting and people that live and work here.
But the people who are hurt if we don't have the money are also these people, and they're not the people that caused the hurt.
I think we're talking about a larger philosophical issue about taxation and social programs and things like that. And we're not going to solve that here tonight. So I think that's
well, I'm just
going to be here all night if we think we're going to, answer that question.
I'm just saying, rather than targeting a specific, I know it's easy. It's real easy. You got the lodging taxes in place. You just got to raise it. Okay, I get how easy it is, but I don't think it's fair. And I think you need to think long and hard about what happens when the short-term rentals disappear in Ridgway. Okay, there's a lot of people that travel, they won't stay anywhere else, but in a vacation rental.
And I think if you think that the short-term rentals are going to disappear if we raise the tax rate on them, I think that's a mistaken assumption.
I know ours will.
So here's
we can't raise rates. We're maxed out.
Then you could rent it long-term.
and take a big hit.
Sure,
Yeah.
but
Income.
it's also, there's also benefit anyway.
So I get the point, because if you look at what happened in Uray, okay, it's very predictable. Okay,
I don't.
short-term rentals are gonna lose business over time.
Do you know how many high
They're gonna
school students
disappear.
we have in Uray right now?
I don't,
40. It's the lowest it's been since anyone can remember. Actually, it's not true. Bernie Pierce, who's retiring this year, can recall one period in which there were 38 students in the high school. Uray's vacant homes are costing the Uray School District money. We don't have a full-time math teacher. It's being cobbled together between the science teacher and don't get me wrong, the kids have competent people who are teaching math, but we're down a staff member and we can't justify hiring them.
don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is a problem that should just be ignored. Okay, I get it. I get the problem. I've got a granddaughter who would love to live here too. So I'm just saying that targeting one piece of the economy here,
Okay.
it's not really fair. We've already seen our lodging tax go from $2 a night to 3.5%. Okay, we were able to eat that. But 22% going to 7% with a lodging tax and 15% on an excise tax or whatever you call it, we'll be done. We'll go to,
But it's your primary residence that you're renting?
no,
Oh, okay.
no. No,
So-
it's in the general.
So my question actually was, when it's come to funding affordable housing, we don't necessarily know the forms that it's gonna come in, right? Like we can, at this point, we can point to,
Unless
we're
we
gonna.
dictate it. I mean, town of Mountain Bill.
Okay, so we know we've been asked to pay tap fees. We know we have been asked to contribute to street construction. We know we have been asked, there's these examples of things that have happened, but there are opportunities, the housing trust coming to us and saying, will you participate? The first time they came to us, that wasn't on our list of things. So would it help to create a menu of the things that we have spent on affordable housing and the money we've laid out, and be clear that we want to be able to continue to capitalize on those? Because I can't promise you that there won't be some state program that comes out in 2 years where they want to matching funds towards, I don't know, 20% cut back, refund on building materials. I don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah, grants and partnerships.
But I think I think we have to be very clear that we don't always know what those opportunities are going to be and how those grant programs are going to evolve over time. So I can't tell you that we're going to spend $20,000 a year in matching grant funds, because I don't know if there's going to be those programs. I don't know what they're going to ask. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not just trying to just point it out. I'm saying we can itemize what we've done, but also need to be clear that there will be additional opportunities that come our way, because we're not the only community in Colorado facing these
Yeah, I
problems.
think it's.
I just would like to see us be particularly aggressive about making our community a place where people live.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great goal, and I don't think anybody would argue with that. I just hope you can find better ways to fund it. Okay, than what you're doing right now.
Thanks.
So, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, I think we need to try to move on. We've got more on the agenda. We also need to direct staff on where to focus going forward.
Can I just pick up on one of the points you made, which is back to the goal concept. I work a lot with Town of Mountain Village, Town of Telluride in my day job. They both have housing authorities, and they both have built affordable housing units for both sale and rental. Granted, they have a much larger tax base, they have a different ways of paying for it, but they have actually worked to solve the affordable housing project by building affordable houses. The towns and the towns themselves have gone out to build them. That's not something I think we can do, but it's something we should consider, is how do we tackle the problem by taking the bull by the horns and actually, have town-sponsored affordable housing projects. Similar to what we're allowed with the water fund, which was, we're allowing it, we're contributing tap fees and other infrastructure through the funds that we hope to raise. But that's sort of the supporting it from the from the backdoor support of it, rather than taking it head on. And it's a much larger conversation than we had time for tonight.
And
but
it's
action that we should- I think.
But then when you start to looking at $500,000 or $1 million, then we're talking small potatoes.
So I know,
Like,
millions of dollars, but it's a way of actually achieving the goal of obtaining, not just obtaining or helping to facilitate affordable housing, it's
I mean,
creating it.
I think
I think-
most of us up here think that based on the scale of Ridgway, our staff, our capability, our capacity, we're not in a place where we can be.
I totally agree. I'm just saying that that's one way to achieve.
It's a
the end
long-term,
goal. Yeah.
it's a long-term goal for sure, but it's.
But I
not
just think
something-
about things like, it was probably about a year ago when the development right across the highway, and they came to us and they said, what interest rates are going to be, these are going to be the costs, and we had to raise the AMI to 125% of the average AMI, median AMI. Now we're talking about we're giving deed restricted units to who, making that much money, right? So, I mean, rather than town developing, does it make sense to, where it's millions of dollars? Can we do there's been programs where you fund a, second mortgage on a property and bring that cost down. And if you live in it for X amount of time, then that gets, I mean, there are other funding mechanisms that are different than fully building it. And that's what I'm saying, like, the scope of what you can do changes based on how much you raise. If we were talking $30,000 a year, it continues to be that small potatoes, we're helping Habitat build 2 homes. If it's $500,000 a year, $250,000 a year, there's different things that you can do. And I think that's kind of the larger question. It makes it hard to say, here's what we're gonna do until we know how much money it is.
And I continue to suggest that that's backwards.
Okay, then I want all, that's what, then if the problem is,
Terry,
if you want to be aggressive about it, then you have to want all the money.
is that how you want us to proceed?
No,
I want you to tell us what you want us to do, because I keep hearing you ask questions and we're all trying to find answers here.
I'm suggesting that we need to quantify our goals.
Target number, Terry.
Tell me how we're gonna do that.
Good question. I think that needs to be studied. How much money do we need to raise to support our goals? What are our?
Okay, so you're suggesting, I'm just trying to be clear.
Yeah.
You'd like us to step back and fund a study to figure out.
I don't know if it needs to be funded, or we could look historically, what have we been able
We
to?
already have, we have numerous studies. We have this latest thing that Region 10 did. We have no shortage of evidence that we have a huge gap
And I
in our
totally get
affordable
that.
housing. You don't agree?
No, I totally get that. I totally
So-
agree with that. Yeah.
So what is it you want? I don't understand.
Well, it's mostly related to the vacant lot tax is that was such a squishy concept of raising some amount of money based on some unknown number of vacant lots.
But it's not squishy. We have a ballpark number. We're somewhere in the order of 80 to 120 homes. Like, it's not very that much. It's not that squishy. What are your goals? What would you like to see us fund? And now here, we can pick a number and work back.
I think
But I'm just gonna keep arguing that we need to be more
we
aggressive.
need to approach Andrea and others to solve the problem and find out what is it that we can reasonably support them with. Is it tap fees? Is it in the neighborhood of 50,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 500,000? What is the scale of the money that we should look at finding mechanisms to raise money?
I think Jake needs to attempt to
he
make
did.
it clear. There are multi-million-dollar projects.
Yep.
On the drawing board.
And I just got that one project that the housing trust helped get from SBA, $20,000 grant. That was, useful to them, but out of the $14 million project, it's a drop.
So do they want $1 million grant from us?
Doesn't that show you that there's no question we need to raise
I'm
as
not
much?
questioning that at all. I'm just saying, if we're going to pick a number in the short-term rental tax category or in the lodging tax, what is it we're aiming to raise? And do we have?
I'm telling you, I'm looking on the order of $250,000 a year and up if we can, because we have things we can spend.
Thrown out.
I'm literally telling you that I want to be aggressive. So do you have another number?
Well, then
that you
just
want to
pick
throw
the
out?
largest percentage of state.
Stay calm, please. Let's stay peaceful and
John, it's fine.
well, we're getting a little heated here. Like just to stay as calm and reasonable so we can get something.
I am in support of looking at these various mechanisms, and I understand the need to raise money. But I'd also like to have an idea of the scale of it, and how do we present this to the taxpayers if in fact we're asking them to increase their taxes and justify it, because we have known uses of the money. We want to fund X amount of tap fees for X amount of units in a given year. We want to support the housing trust with X amount of dollars per year. Have some sort of a tangible target that we raise money towards. I don't think that's an unreasonable
I know, and I
idea.
think that's exactly what we're talking about doing. I think we're talking about getting staff to say, okay, here's what the home trust could do per year potentially. Here's Habitat for Humanity might do a project for you. Here's X number of grant funds that we could help do the matching grant. I mean, it's all right there. It's what we've been talking about ever once.
I've made my
Sorry,
point.
so you mind if I jump in?
Go ahead.
So I don't really know where to start
Please do.
a lot, but Andrea touched on this, and you were just touching on this too, Terry, about moving forward with a ballot initiative. There, you have to be very thoughtful and strategic about that, right? That's the next step. And presenting it to the voters so that voters understand what's at hand and where the funding would be applied to. That's got to be very clear. That's ballot language 101 and required by state statute. So again, that's the next step. But at this point, we need some clear direction on how to proceed. We're sitting here in March. There's plenty of time. If we're not ready to proceed with anything in particular or get any specific direction tonight, that's okay. That's okay. This is a very tough conversation and probably warrants some subsequent conversations, be it workshops or work sessions at some other regular meetings. I think the dialogue has been fantastic. Appreciate everyone maintaining their decorum. But again, there is no need to rush this in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's clear that no decisions will be made tonight. But eventually, staff will need direction on how to formulate some specific ballot language if the decision is to move forward. It sounds like the collective decision is to move forward with something, just not sure what that something is yet.
I have an idea that might help ameliorate the problem of we don't know what's coming. There's a lot of unknowns. What if it was a second home tax with a sunset date? And we would have to then show our voters that something happened with that money. They would have to reapprove it. We would have to show this is what we did with your funds. Because I think the big fear is that you're going to have taxes and you're going to keep adding taxes. But I think if you still are having troubles finding employees and people are still not doing it, but we can point and say, we've contributed to these land trust projects. We have spent this much in tap fees. Here's what we have done with this tax money. That might help some of those concerns of you're just taxing us and taxing us and taxing us. You're not getting anywhere. But if you can point to, there's X number of homes that exist that may, because there are so many unknowns, Terry, that I don't really know what to pick as a goal. But this would tell everybody it only lasted this long. And if you don't want to renew it, because we didn't do anything with it, there's a sunset.
I think that what we need to do at this point, based on what Preston said, is that we need to continue to do research on the vacant home speculation tax. We need to get the chamber board in here to talk about tweaks to the lodging tax. And
our relationship with the chamber.
Yeah. Well,
I just mean not just tweaks to the lodging tax itself, but
that's why I'm saying
Yes.
getting them in here so we have a comprehensive conversation about their needs, what we're trying to accomplish, what they think. I mean, Tanya very nicely said she thought some of what we were considering in the numbers here in the report could work. But I think we need to, out of respect for them, we need to get them in and have them weigh in. The short-term rental tax, I'm tossed up about. I think I'd like to see us raise that, but I'm not sure what number it should be. I do think short-term rentals have a serious impact on the community. But I think we need to do more work. We need to share some of that with staff, but ask staff to help us do that research and work and come back either for another workshop or another discussion at a later council meeting.
May I ask I'm not sure if it's a bookkeeping question or if it's a like secretarial question, but in terms of language that we put on the ballot, does each specific, like say this is not what we want to do, these are just questions and examples, but say we want to do a short-term lodging tax increase and a second home owner tax increase / speculation tax, do each of those individual measures need to be individual questions on the ballot?
Yes,
Excellent.
and
Okay.
that would be really, that would be very frowned upon to have more than one ballot measure
Right.
on any given ballot.
That's kind of what I figured, but I wanted
That's
to
what-
make sure that I
I
understood.
think
the
that's what
interpretation.
Andrew was trying to say, yeah, right. And it looks like Bo might want to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think it would confuse the voter. So yes, it's possible. But I think that it would probably be best, at least for if you're going into the November election cycle, to have one dedicated approach.
Great. Thank you. That's what I assumed, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't
Yeah.
missing something that we could do.
Okay, Preston, what do you think about my summation?
I got some good notes off that. If council was in concurrence with that, then I think staff has direction. And I do want to touch on the fee and lieu piece that Russ was talking about. If you guys checked out the memo, I think that fits very well with not the current Chapter 7 updates that's going on in conjunction with the Chapter 7 updates now, but there's going to be a new affordable housing section that it would fit nicely in and will happen subsequent to the zoning and subdivision regulation updates. So Russ, I hope you saw that. I've talked quite a bit with TJ about it. We're both very much in agreement that it fits very well with those subsequent updates to look at that further and maybe propose a fee for an.
Yeah, I did see that and I appreciate that. I think there's still some things that we need to discuss on that because I think there's probably some options that we can tweak this and make it even more attractive. So I look forward to going through this again.
Great.
Well, I want to thank you, Preston, for putting this report together. You know, in support of the master plan goal to evaluate mechanisms or strategies for dedicated revenue source for affordable housing, I'm in total lockstep agreement that that's something that we should work for. So I'm not opposed to any of that. I'm not opposed to the need to find a dedicated revenue stream. I just think we have to be diligent about what it is we're asking our taxpayers to vote on. And if my child came to me and said he wanted more allowance, I'd say why, and if he didn't have an answer, I'd question him hard before I give him more money. So it's basically being accountable for what it is we're asking for.
Understood. Okay, anything else on this item? Giving it a good flogging. Okay, unless I hear it otherwise, I'm going to move on to item number 11 and 11, 12, and 13 are all requests for authorization for me to sign a letter of support. First one is item number 11 is letter of support for the Home Trust Area County's congressional directed spending request.
And Andrea, I think is online, but Andrea, do you want to talk to the ask?
Yeah, sure. So we're trying again. We tried last year and we didn't get it. I think we only applied to Senator Hickenlooper's office as well. I don't think we did Senator Bennett's. So we're trying this year for both. Jake and I sat in on the Q&A to really understand if we even like have a shot. And it sounds like we do. basically, they just want the funds to be expended as soon as they are received. And so the $1,197,525 are for three things for the Ridgway rentals and childcare project. They're to pay back the DOLA Operation Turnkey loan of $360,000. They are to pay for the design, so architect, structural, civil, landscape. And we've estimated that to be about 8% of hard costs. So $567,000 and $520, sorry. And then we included tap fees, so that, you know, maybe that's something that we could go ahead and just, I did a rough estimate based on some numbers Pam Kraft gave me a while ago. It may be too high potentially, or maybe too low, but it's a decent start. So those are things that I think that we could pay for immediately if we can receive this funding. And so just, oh, and I should let you guys know that we finally have finished our business plan for the Home Trust, and it includes a breakdown of each project by funding sources. So I have a full page on the Ridgway Child Care Center and Affordable Rentals Project, and basically where we're hoping to draw funds from and how much from each source. And so Terry, this may, but as a side note, this may go towards what you have in mind. You know, I have, for instance, in the Ridgway Child Care Center Affordable Rentals, I have local government 500,000. So, you know, it's a number. I have no idea, you know, if we can get there, but you know, got to start somewhere. So yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I'm just glad to hear you think that you got a good shot at it this time.
I think so. It's still on apparently Senator Hickenlooper's priority list, childcare and affordable housing. And actually his Helen Kadich, I think she is his assistant. I'm not entirely sure. She had wanted an update. So it sounds like they may still be interested in this project. Cross your fingers. And we're also, just so you guys know, we're the Uray County Child Care Work Group, which the Home Trust is a part of, is working on getting funding for a voter survey. We've made a $1,000 request to ROC, and then a $4,000 request to Caring for, we'll go through the formal process of the request to Caring for Colorado for $4,000 here at the end of the middle of this month. But we are looking at doing a voter survey, like kind of a precursor to putting out a mill levy. But it would help us to understand if we would even have a shot of getting a tax pass to fund a childcare, a licensed childcare facility, and have that regular revenue stream. Yeah, it's we've got some cool stuff going on there, and you know, hopefully we get it this time.
Sounds good. Anybody have any questions for Andrea?
No questions, fingers crossed.
Fingers are definitely
Fingers
crossed.
crossed. Anybody on Zoom have any questions? In the room here. All right, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the letters of support for the Home Trust of Uray County congressionally directed spending request.
Seconded.
Motion by Russ, seconded by Polly. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Graham-Lee,
Aye.
Kroger,
Aye.
Lakin. Skylar.
Aye.
Thomas.
JT, you there?
Sorry about that. I muted myself. Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Passes unanimously. Good luck, Andrea.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here. This brings us to item number 12, request for authorization for me to sign a letter of support for the San Miguel Power Association's planning grant application with microgrids for community resilience grant program.
Didn't we shift something else to 12 or was that 13?
The next one, the county's one is next.
All right, sorry.
That's right.
So before you use a letter of support to express the town's support of SMPA in their efforts to apply for microgrids for resilience funding. My guy, Terry Scott, is about to give you a presentation and rock your socks.
The presentation's in your packet. I can go through it pretty quickly if you're not.
I was gonna urge you to make short work of it if you could.
Yeah, and Jerry, if you want to, I mean, if you want to share your screen or something, you don't have to, but I can bring it up on the screen.
If you want to bring it up, I just had to prompt you through it. I'm not going to go through the preamble. The preamble is that effectively that we worked with San Miguel County on a couple of microgrid projects from the sheriff's office that became the poster child for in support of a bill that created this microgrid for community resiliency grant fund. And from that, the first round of funding is for planning grants. And I'm currently working on submitting 4 separate planning grants, one for the town of Rico to back up the entire town, one for the town of Ophir to back up the entire town, along with community solar gardens, a couple of smaller microgrid systems for the San Miguel Power's offices, which are to power critical communications in times of outages that affect our offices. And then there's the grant that I'm asking for a letter of support for now, which is to investigate 3 possible sites in the town of Ridgway. So you can scroll all the way down to those. Okay, start right. Actually, let me just briefly touch on these because they're kind of fun. This is the one for the town of Rico. So town of Rico is in a narrow, high altitude valley. It's fed by what they call a radio feeder. I mean, there's only one line that goes into the town, no other backup. So if the line goes down, the town goes down. And typically that happens when there's avalanches or significant vegetation damage that takes the line down. So here a microgrid would be a decent size, about a 300 kilowatt solar system feeding a 2.4 megawatt hour battery bank that would provide 4 to 8 hours of backup resiliency to the town in the case of an extended outage. The solar would then be available to recharge the batteries, and extend the outage into days and weeks if it were truly a long extended outage. The next slide is essentially the same application, but it's for the town of Ophir. Again, you can see the line comes into Ophir and stops. There's no other way to feed the town if the primary line goes down from the Sunshine substation. In both of these cases, and in the case of Ridgway, we look at doubling the size of the battery bank and taking the solar energy, charging the battery during the day, and then exporting the energy at nighttime when we receive significant additional revenue from Tri-State or revenue offset by offsetting our demand charges. Otherwise, we get just what's considered the retailer, the wholesale energy value. So by being able to dump the solar at night, we can monetize a much higher value to the solar energy, which helps then pay for the battery bank and the solar system, which otherwise would just be an expense. So this is a way of generating revenue through offsetting the charges we pay to Tri-State for the energy. I don't need to go into detail about the microgrids for the offices. By the way, they're very similar to the microgrid that we budgeted for, that you approved budget for the Space to Create microgrid, which is a behind the meter small battery solar system that enables backup power for dedicated loads. In the case of the Space to Create, it would be backup power for the entire community centers. And I've talked to Tara Wick about possibly creating provisions for charging stations or charging bars and things of that nature to enable the residents of Space to Create to come down during an outage and charge their laptops and their cell phones and iPads and so forth, as well as being a resilience hub, which is mentioned later in the presentation. But on to the systems for the three possible systems in Ridgway. One I've mentioned to you previously is looking at the Green Street Park as a site. There's a point of interconnection there, a three-phase point of interconnection, which actually would provide backup to, that's actually the circuit that powers all of Ridgway, both north and south, although we would have to segment it depending upon the size of the battery bank. The other two sites are the site next to the proposed location for the pump track on the south of the soccer field. And that's roughly a 345 kilowatt PV system. And then let me just think of that slide for a moment. Both of these systems are effectively equivalent. They're effectively the same size. That's the way I've designed them, such that the output would power approximately 75 homes annually with the solar energy. Because these two are located on town property, we could work out an arrangement where the output of the solar systems has some form of exclusivity to the town, meaning that the town residents who either have first right of refusal to obtain the energy through the Totally Green program. If the town wanted to reserve the capacity of the output of these systems for future affordable homes or for future compliance with a net zero requirement, then they could potentially, for a penny a kilowatt hour, buy the output of the energy and then subtract that as users sign on to the program. So there's some interesting out of the box concepts that we can explore to allow the output of these two town sited solar systems with the battery backup to be exclusive to the town. So that's something we can work out. Then Dana Iver has been working with her, and she's agreed to have us explore the approximately 4.5 acres out of her 180 acre conservation easement parcel, which would be about a 1 megawatt system, 3 times the size of the two town sites. And so I'm rolling the planning initiative, all of the engineering and costing and the draft RFP writing. I'm rolling this one in with the two town sites for one specific planning grant, with the idea that the output of these systems would benefit the town at large, the town proper, as well as surrounding communities. Different rules on this one. It's in the county-owned property, would require a special use permit, so we'd have to go through county hearings. Actually, it'd be a joint planning commission, be part of the populated by town planning commission personnel as well as county planning personnel. So this has a little bit more of a takedown requirement to it. This particular system could power as many as 225 homes, potentially more. One of the ideas is that part of the planning grant activities is for us to get all of the details necessary for me to present to the town, so that you might down select one or both or none of the town sites. Likewise with Dana's property. So we have a lot of engineering, a lot of vetting and environmental permitting and all these issues that we have to explore to see exactly which of these makes the most sense. One concept would be to do the South Soccer Field site and Dana's site and tie the two together and put one large battery bank on the two of them. We could still reserve the output of the town sited system for exclusive use by the town. The output of the Dana system would probably be available to all SMPA members and outside of Ridgway. So there's a lot of details that need to be worked out, and that's what the planning grant money is for. So in summary, that's what I'm asking for, is a letter of support so that we can obtain this planning grant money to undertake these activities. So it's, down selecting the sites, looking at the amount of storage required, sizing of battery bank, sizing of the solar system, going through the permit exploration, looking at utility cost questions, coming up with a budgetary quote, developing an RFP. And at the point of developing an RFP, then I have the information I need to then apply for the construction grant, which isn't open. That grant process opens up in the fall. So this is all the preliminary steps required to get to the point of applying for a construction grant. The construction grant could pay for 66% of the remaining balance after all the other federal grant funding is taken off the top, which means there's a 30% direct pay federal ITC grant. So 30% comes from the feds right off the top. That the MCR or the microgrid funding could fund 66% of the balance, meaning that San Miguel Power now could afford to go out and use RUS money, basically USDA money at low interest rates and develop this on our own, rather than having to go to a third-party developer, where the third-party developer typically would have taken a tax advantage. The new IRA funding allows nonprofits to take advantage of that 30% incentive directly. So this is a game changer, enabling San Miguel Power to look at developing these systems ourselves. And then lastly, we'll come back to Preston and others on the next round of planning grant funding and looking at other applications for smaller microgrids, for example, microgrid to back up this facility or the shop facilities, or possibly the water treatment plant, or critical loads at the wastewater treatment plant. So I just don't have the bandwidth to explore more than the 4 applications that are due by the end of this month. So that's it in a nutshell. So we're just asking for you guys to authorize John to sign the letter of support in support of our looking for planning grant money. The end.
Okay, questions? Either up here or on Zoom or in the room?
Crickets.
Well, in a show of goodwill, since I'd like to already know he didn't point the well, poison the well, but I would like to move to approve that John signed the letter of support for the planning grant.
Microgrid planning.
And I second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Kevin. Roll call, vote, please.
Councilmembers Graham,
Aye.
Kroger.
Aye.
Lakin.
Aye.
Skylar.
I'll abstain.
Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
All right, passes with 1 abstention. That brings us to the added item,
Thank you.
for the county. Right?
Yes, sir. For use a support letter, on behalf of Erie County's submittal of congressionally directed spending dollars to construct a crossing over Corbett Creek located on County Road 17, just north of the city of Erie. I do see Jake Neese on. Perhaps he wants to talk to this a little bit, but that's the gist.
Thank you. Anything you want to add?
No, not here to discuss that specifically, just listening in like I do with most meetings. If you have any questions, happy to answer. This is another congressionally directed spending request, something that the county's submitted twice before and not gotten before. But we're trying again.
Good on you. Let's hope
Yeah, this is
it's
could be a
really,
great project.
really needed.
Mhm.
Somebody will make a motion?
I motion to approve of John signing the Corbett Creek Crossing / County Road 17 flood mitigation congressional letter. Does that work?
That's good enough.
Solid.
Do that one with Russ.
Okay.
Motion made by Polly, seconded by Russ. Call vote, please.
This will be once.
Yeah, we'll wait 1 second. One of us is using the facilities.
Yes. Roll call vote. Kroger. Lakin. Hi. Skylar. Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Best of luck on that, Jake. That takes us to the new item 14, resolution number 2304, canceling the April regular election. So we're not.
Stuck with me.
Other applicants, Pam.
Yes, that's correct. I'm presenting to you a resolution whereby I'm canceling the election that was to be held on April 4th for 3 candidates. There were 3 seats for council and there were 3 nomination petitions filed. Those were filed by 3 incumbents, council members Kroger, Lakin, and Meyer. And Any council's approval on this? Well, you're just acknowledging that I'm canceling the election.
Abstain from this?
No.
No,
I
because it
can't.
actually doesn't.
So,
Yeah.
vote, do they need to abstain?
Well, then you,
No, they wouldn't need to abstain. It's not, it just it needs to happen. So it's not like there's a.
Yeah.
I mean,
I need someone to make a motion to approve resolution 2304, canceling the April regular election.
So moved.
Thank you, Russ.
Second.
Motion made by Russ, seconded by Terry. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Graham,
Aye.
Kroger,
Aye.
Lakin,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Thomas,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Meyer.
Aye.
Okay, welcome back aboard. And Pam has on the agenda that you three need to be sworn back in. Do we need to finish the agenda first, or do you want to do that now?
Do you have any more items?
We have
The joke.
yeah. The joke, like I feel about the joke. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, we have the town manager report. We have,
And before we move too far, I'd just like to say how happy I am that the three of you chose to do this for another round. I think we got a good group up here.
Yes, we do. I agree.
There's good conversation. Thank you, the three of you. You hear that, Russ?
Good.
Aye, I did. Thanks.
Thanks.
Good, dedicated team here. It's great. Yeah, town manager's report plus any other reports anybody might have. Preston, anything you want to highlight for us? I honestly have not had a chance to read it. I was in meetings all day, but
Well, I got it out at like 4 o'clock, so I don't think, sorry about that. Want to highlight 3 different things and then happy to answer any questions. Save the date for the Ridgway Space Creek grand opening celebration. That will be on Thursday, June 8th. Awesome. Seems like far away, but that's really not that.
it's been so quick.
Thursday, June 8th. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to working with Art Space on planning and organizing that event. Paul Major, David Bruce, and the rest of the development team for Wetterhorn Homes. They're hosting an information session in this room next Tuesday, the 14th at 5:30 to update folks on the project. Stryker will be underway with resuming the public improvements on that site at that point, and also hold a Q&A session. People can join by Zoom too, but I guess they're saying that only questions posted in the chat will be answered if you attend on Zoom. So just FYI there. The next tri-agency dinner is slated to take place soon. Connie has posted a couple dates that seem to work well for the county and the city. And I think the preferred date is April 11th, actually, which is very soon, like exactly a month. Wanted to relay that was the preferred date. Doesn't have to work for us.
Works for me as of now.
Both of those dates work for me as of this grant. What should work?
Lizzie's birthday.
Who's birthday?
Lizzie. Not sure that's right.
Both of those dates work for me. Sorry.
Thanks, Russ.
Thanks, Russ.
I'm anticipating being away on April 11th. So the second date would work better for me. However, that doesn't mean we have to change that.
Okay, thank you.
JT?
Flexible on all those dates. Yep. I just want to get home.
I bet you do.
Terry?
I'm trying to check. 11th is what day is that? That's a
Tuesday.
That's open to me, and the 4th is Thursday.
Thursday.
Both should work.
Okay. I will relay that to Connie and we'll see what we end up going with.
I just like.
Tell Connie, over you probably say the same thing I was. I was gonna say, please just tell Connie, thanks every time someone does it. I think it's such a great thing that we're back to doing these.
Yeah, pass along our thanks for
Absolutely.
for moving forward in a timely manner.
Pam set the bar though.
Pam's at the bar.
Yeah.
Pam's on here.
I was also just gonna point out, to Bob, our friend here in the audience, that the two items that the president first mentioned, the Space to Create grand opening and the Weather Homes project information session, are two great examples that what we've been doing is not piecemeal. We've been creating real affordable housing like nobody else in the county has. So we wanted to point that out. Anybody else have questions or comments for anything in the town manager report?
We got one here, John.
Bob?
I'm just let's say thanks for putting that out, but I was really talking about the cash proceeds, not the partnerships and grants.
Well, it's all part of the puzzle pieces. So yeah, it all counts.
Excited about this MTV 2030 solutions project.
Yep.
This regional grants navigator program is really exciting based on discussions we had during budget season.
I agree.
Glad you noticed that. Yeah, really excited to see what comes of that based on what we budgeted for and what all we want to see. So,
And I will say that I have been ringing the bell on that one at Region 10 meetings about how, and I'm not alone, a lot of the smaller communities that are members of Region 10 have been for months now, if not several years, saying that we really need help navigating the amount of funding that there is out there with our limited staff. So it's great to see it.
Speaking of grants, is there any news on Proposition 123 that passed and the affordable housing funding stream at the state level, and on what we need to do to have potential access to that, or what that's looking like at
There was a
community level?
webinar a few months ago, right after the election, within a month or two of the election, that discussed that sort of, I think it was GML. I can't remember.
and what was the proposition?
123. But it was the state established and pretty narrowly passed a fairly substantial.
Using some of the Tabor mandated rebate money that is supposed to go whenever there's excess tax collected. Some of that money is being earmarked to go to the housing.
Okay, yeah.
So I just want to make sure that as we talk about spending streams, that would be one of those like things where we could say we need to be able to match or whatever we need to do to grab that state money that's out there.
With regards to the Mountain 2030, MT 2030 Solutions Project, a speaker, Troy, I can't remember his last name, from Crested View, presented at the the Sustainability Advisory Board about how all of the issues around them having been pioneering going all electric with their codes, and it was very useful to the board. And I see that the next meeting on the schedule is around that same issue. So I encourage, since we paid for it, for all of us to participate or check it out. I think they're recorded too.
Yeah.
So that's part and parcel to one of our strategic objectives is the building electrification.
Yep, and I urge you all you should have gotten an email with a link to their website. They have sort of, it's almost like a mini social media thing where you can create your account. You can have conversations there with individual community members about the various issues. It's really well done.
And we did contribute, what is it, $1,500?
2,500, or was it less?
It actually ended up being 1,000, a little over 1,000.
As an individual member rather than an original.
As an individual member, and that came about in talking with Kim. Kim and I were trying to navigate how to get signed up, and that ended up being a contribution amount, which is
great. I think it was a good choice. I mean, it's great to do it in a regional sense too, but it gives us a little direct access to it.
Absolutely.
I always just like Tara's section. I feel like that she does colors.
What's that?
Tara's section of
Yeah.
the town manager's report.
I urge you all to go to the happy hour next Tuesday as well.
So I'm not canceling.
So I need to use more colors then?
Yes. Make it.
More graphics.
I was just gonna say that I appreciate Preston's very nice and organized. I kind of appreciate it. Oh, so it's really nice that then you switch at the end with the Terra color, but we all get it.
Yeah, I think it's all great.
So what do I need to tell Sue?
You need to tell Sue that it made me laugh. I
It's a
did a snort. I did a snort.
All right, tell her it was snort worthy.
Sue can't do anything wrong.
So is no.
And Bo's putting his thumbs up, so that's ridiculous.
Preston, you're too sensitive. Keep working, dude. You can get there. You don't like that joke?
No, I thought it was great.
It's a good joke, yeah.
It reminds me of that.
He doesn't like it, he
That
just
graphic
doesn't get
came
the
out
same.
during the pandemic. That graphic of a T-Rex and his little tiny hands, and it says this is why they went extinct, because they couldn't use sanitizer.
Sanitize their hands.
Couldn't wipe their hands.
Just so you know what the joke of the day was, it says, why do dinosaurs make lousy pets? Because they're dead.
It's pretty organic.
Sorry, Preston, that's that path.
Chris with you, the fire.
Liz, you're welcome to submit. Everybody's welcome to submit. All right, anything else? Anybody have any committee reports? No one else speak at once.
I can, JT, you want me to fill in briefly? I just on the last SAB meeting.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Deb oversaw that rather than Preston this time. Did a great job, and as usual, it's a challenge to herd the cats. Everybody's very impassioned and has lots of ideas. So their challenge is in focusing on one or two achievable goals. They reviewed the goals that were set forth in the resolution to kind of refresh what it is they're trying to do. And they have a workshop, I think it's tomorrow, right? Thanks. Tomorrow to actually focus on one item, which is looking at developing either a web page or a website to help communicate the issues that they're going to be working on. I think that's pretty much what they accomplished in the last meeting. And they missed you, JT.
Miss you guys. I'm supposed to fly home tomorrow.
Yay. Can't wait to see him. Anyone else?
Can't wait to see his pictures.
I met your neighbor on the chairlift.
I would just throw out that the Communities that Care Coalition, I'm the liaison to, has started back up, gotten active, and we had a great kind of introductory meeting with the what do we call it? The community board up in Ridgway a week or so ago, and a bunch of smaller groups were formed, and we're working on places to create for team gathering center and address some of the mental health concerns in our youth. And there'll be a PYD, which is positive youth development training, coming up here in, I think, April and May, that I urge all of you to attend if you're available. More info coming on that, but it's really a great organization that does really positive work for the kids and the families of Erie County.
I guess I did have one thing to report from Parks. Yep, I did have one thing to report from the Parks, Trails and Open Spaces Committee meeting. We just basically kind of reviewed like what we're doing with the master plan, kind of reviewed Heritage Park, all that kind of stuff. And then the only other thing was at the very end, Dave was interested in getting an assessment on the water usage in our parks. And I'm wondering if that is used most efficiently, most effectively, and how that may be bettered. Because he said there was like the water My brain stopped working, sorry. The water. Shoot,
Like a leak or something?
nope. Like the report, there you go. The water report came out, and then the parks were using it compared to the water, and he was wondering if we could do better.
Wondered, and that wouldn't, as as far as I know, the non-potable water system that waters most of our parks isn't metered at all, is it?
I don't think we have a meter on it, but what's that?
It's not.
No, but we have some data to track.
So
That's what comes down from the water
Okay.
line.
So that's where the number that she threw out would come from.
I would imagine so.
Okay.
And just like a little side note is that you can continue discussing that, like, as we ask people to cut down water uses in their yard and encourage other forms of xeriscaping or less water intensive usage. It's important to remember that those parks are a shared resource where you do have the green grass and all of those pieces too. So they're gonna use, we would hope, more water than individual residents of that shared piece. So I'm sure that's come up, but just an important part to keep in mind.
Thank you.
We could probably do better, but I think this town staff does a pretty good job. Anything else? Unless I hear otherwise, I will call us adjourned.
No,
Thank you.
no, I don't. Wait.
Oh, sorry, we
Yeah,
gotta
sure.
swear people in, okay. Come on, you newcomers.
Russ, since you're not here, we can all just sit in our chairs just like you.
Yeah?
How do you feel?
Can he be sworn in remotely?
Okay, he just gave us a thumbs up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm just gonna ask that, Polly, Beth, and Russ, all raise your right hand and repeat after me. And it's okay, Russ, I'll go slow so you don't reverberate. I state your name.
I, Beth Lakin,
Russ Meyer.
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado,
and of the state of Colorado,
and faithfully perform the duties of the office
The office.
of town councillor upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, everybody.
thanks, everybody.
How's that?
And on that note, I will declare us adjourned.
Safe travels tomorrow, JT. See you, JT.
Get home.
See you, Russ. See you, Russ.
You need it.
Yeah.
How long is the flight?
Bye-bye.
Days?
Yeah, tomorrow night and hopefully sleep on the plane. I'll be back in Ridgway Friday afternoon.
Wiped out.
Yeah. Congratulations. Safe travels, JT.
Oh, man, I'm gonna borrow your pen.